Thunderbolts. Essentially, the MCU's pseudo-version of the Suicide Squad. Is it really the best Marvel movie since Endgame? Is Taskmaster really even in this movie?
Of course.
What should people expect going into this film? Let's get into it. The first thing I want to discuss is the narrative. Thunderbolts takes all of these misfits and anti-heroes from previous movies and shows and forces them to come together in order to survive and in the end save the day. And for what it's worth, there is some decent chemistry between the team. The characters are all interesting for the most part. It's a fun dynamic watching these rogue operatives who don't work well with others being forced to put their differences aside and come together, so at the very least, the movie doesn't feel like a drag or boring. However, and I'll touch a little bit more on this in a bit, but I very much thought that the actors' chemistry together saved a wildly convenient and weak plot. I think the film makes a great decision with having all these anti-heroes relating to each other in the sense that they have all made mistakes in their past, and they are all having problems moving on from those mistakes and making something of themselves. So that was cool, and it's really cool to see Bucky, who already kind of had to go through that journey in previous movies. It's cool to see him help lead the rest of the cast along this redemption arc where they're putting aside their past and learning to move forward and use their powers for good. The movie tackles some really serious themes for a Marvel movie, such as mental health, depression, and drug addiction, and I thought that it handled those themes very well, particularly in this one scene towards the end of the movie. However, Thunderbolts definitely seemed like a movie that prioritized its themes over its story, and that is what I attribute a lot of the worst aspects of this film to. Okay, so there's just no way around this. Thunderbolts has a really weak plot for the most part. Like, there's this one really cool and well done sequence towards the end of the movie, and in my opinion, the whole movie almost seems to be structured around getting to that point by any means necessary, so most of the rest of the film is just like a first draft script where things just happen for no other reason other than to allow the story to progress to the next point and ultimately get to that one really good sequence. There are some really dumb plot conveniences and plot holes in this movie, and for me personally, that was pretty glaring and distracting, but hey, some people might not care too much about that kind of stuff, so if that's you, then you might not mind it. Another thing that I was really disappointed in was the way some characters just get written off and not really explored at all, particularly Ghost. It seems like every other member of the team gets some good development and some looks into their backstory and struggles, but Ghost is kind of just there. And it stands out a lot when pretty much everyone else on the team gets good development except for her. Well, except for her and Taskmaster, obviously. Yeah, I don't really know why Taskmaster is in this movie at all. I'll just leave it at that. Also, Valentina is just like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. She is just like cartoonishly evil, and I know Marvel is known for having really weak villains most of the time, but even by Marvel standards, I found Valentina to be just even a step below that, unfortunately. That being said, however, I thought that the rest of the team and the rest of the cast was great. Red Guardian was loud and boisterous, but I did find a few of his moments funny. Bucky has this fight scene in the movie where it's like a return to form from his Winter Soldier days, and dude, it's so cool. Anyways, as I'm sure many of you know, Sentry is the main antagonist of this film, kind of, and it's sort of strange to see all of these people who are like at most at Captain America's level try to take down this guy who is basically Marvel's Superman. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, Sentry on his own is pretty alright, I guess. I really like the way they made Void look in this movie and how Void plays off of Bob or Sentry's self-hatred and depression. I thought that that was a really good choice. It really helps reinforce the themes of mental health and mental struggles that the movie is trying to promote here. To reiterate, almost everything to do with the movie's characters and its themes are where it shines and does really well. However, almost everything to do with its plot and story is where the movie falls short of being competent or compelling. Some of my last thoughts here: the cinematography was pretty solid. The third act of this movie has a really desaturated look that is so different than the typical bright colored Marvel film, and I really like that deviation from from the MCU norm. And yeah, the ending of this movie, I will just say this, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending of this movie is really jarring, happens out of nowhere, and then it just ends like 10 seconds later, and it feels really rushed, underdeveloped, and wacky. So it kind of left like a poor taste in my mouth leaving the theater. But yeah, overall, Thunderbolts is a perfectly adequate Marvel movie. Definitely some bright spots. It's not the best Marvel movie since Endgame, and not one of the best Marvel movies ever. I for sure think that is just overhyping it a bit because, you know, a lot of Marvel's recent projects have sucked. And just because this movie tackles serious subjects like mental health, that means that it's good. Like, it is good, but it's not like that good, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely not a bad Marvel film by any stretch. But let me know what you guys thought of the movie in the comments. If you really enjoyed this review, then please leave a like and consider subscribing, as it does help me out. And I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a great day.